Evening, guys. Evening. Sorry about the small delay there. Having a little cat nap, doing the 6 a.m. shift, so thought it was going to be a quiet day. A little bit more sprite in the step than I was expecting here, especially in the dollar yen. Now, dollar yen threatening some of that negative sentiment. Overnight, you saw a shift there with the US stock market, a little bit of a rally. Now, this has taken some pressure off the dollar yen. And some of the yen crosses as well, euro yen and pound yen in particular, have been enjoying a little bit of a bounce, and you know, it wouldn't take too much more from here for there to be a bit more short covering. The market was pretty, not heavy short, but definitely had started to build up some negative sentiment towards, say, the euro yen. It had broken lower than some previous levels, and so if we can get back above that, then you start to see some bottoming here. I don't mind the euro yen actually as a way of playing the yen weakness in a risk on move if we were to get it. I don't expect we're going to get too far, but definitely the 110 level seems to be further away today, and if I had stops above 111 here on dollar yen, they're probably more likely to be taken than the stops below 110, or even new fresh lows in dollar yen right now seem a little harder, seem a little further away. In terms of data though, that it is the first week of the month, so there is going to be a little bit of data tonight. We do get the US non-manufacturing, which is the services, and you get the ADP. So this is the warm-up number for the NFP right now. Remember, we use this as a place marker for the NFP. It doesn't really have that big a bearing historically, but if it's a strong number, the market starts to price up a higher NFP, and so the whisper number, as you would call it, for the NFP, which is a number that market sort of needs to beat to get a US dollar reaction, rather than just the Reuters forecast number, will be higher if the ADP number is strong. So remember last month, sorry, we had that very strong ADP number. Everyone's like, oh, NFP is going to be strong. NFP came in strong, then it wasn't a huge surprise. Whereas if there was a big discrepancy, then obviously the reaction would be even more. So sort of like the pacemaker for the NFP, right? If it comes in very strong tonight, the ADP, then people start to subconsciously, at the very least, think that the NFP is going to be strong. And so you got to keep that in the back of your mind when you think about your NFP strategies. But there will be reaction in the stock market and dollar yen. If it's strong, dollar yen higher. And like I said, it doesn't take much here to get dollar yen back above 111, and then creeping higher again. Now pound responded. Isn't really much of a headline driven, any of this. This is just pretty small moves, but gets the shorts thinking, right? So the PMI number for services came in solid, above 50, above what everyone expected to be the beginning of a weakening number. So 55 versus 53.5 expected. So that's decent. That's a decent number. I mean, it's not a huge beat like we've seen some of the UK data, but it's holding up. So the UK data is holding, and that's enough that the shorts might be able to capitalize on this and start that squeeze again. Like, I expect the size of the short squeeze that we're going to get in the pound while we're waiting for the negotiations to start to be of the order of 127 to 130. And so that's where, if I'm looking to sell, that's where, if I'm short, if I'm negative on the whole Brexit for the UK, I want to be selling up there rather than selling here. And tactically, I don't mind the long, just looking for that short squeeze alone. It is a bit of a dangerous trade though, guys. This is not the sort of thing that you'd risk a lot of your account on, and you could wake up and be stopped out on this pound at almost any time. And so, there will be a lot of headlines in the future as well. I just don't think there's that many in the next couple of days or next couple of weeks that's going to hit the pound so hard. So keep an eye on, say, the euro pound, right? The euro pound's a good way to gauge how the pound's going. When the euro pound's falling, then the pound's probably doing well, broadly. And you've seen that. Now, you'll notice that I did close out my Euro Pound trades. And that was a mistake. Alright. I was a little worried about the way the Euro was moving this morning. And the way the Aussie was moving. So I closed out my long Euro and I closed out my short Euro Pound. It was when the Euro broke here. So the Euro broke this 106.80 level, and I was like, okay, well, Euro's going a bit higher. Pound wasn't following. Get out of my Euro, and the Aussie was, you know, beginning its bit of a short squeeze too. So I was like, well, get out of that too. This is with sentiment change. So with stock markets going higher, you don't really want to short the Aussie ever. It's just a dangerous sort of trade. And while the Aussie can still go down, you know, you protect your capital, protect your profit, go look for another trade. Is probably the most prudent way, especially if we're talking, you know, part of the main reason of this trade was we're looking for Trump-China negativity to show its face before the meeting. And if you don't get that Trump-China negativity beforehand, if you're holding into the meeting, then you get this risk. Then you get this big headline risk that it will be hard to manage. So there's no need for that. Right, now if we're talking like what's the main catalyst here? Is it the stock market rally that gets you spooked, that, you know, the downside is negated for just short term anyway? No, it was more the dollar yen. The dollar yen's price action suggested that we weren't going to break 110. If we're not breaking 110, we're not going to have the collapse in US dollar, and there isn't going to be extension lower in the Dow. And there isn't going to be, you know, next move lower in the Aussie dollar in that environment. So that was the thinking beyond this. Some of the reason for the euro to be strong today was Le Pen. Earlier today, anyway, was that Le Pen had a pretty bad debate last night. So the chances of her winning, I think she was the worst debater. The polls came out afterwards on the debate itself. And so yeah, you know, her chances continue to be very minimal in the French election, which is coming up quicker than you'd expect. First week in March, May is not that far away. So there's no real risk being priced in at the moment with the euro. In terms of how big a relief rally you get if French elections pass, I mean, it was pretty positive for Netherlands. It should be a bigger event if those elections pass and there isn't any chance of Le Pen winning. Then I think that will set the stage for the euro to have a more significant rally, and perhaps next time ECB being dovish and won't be enough to protect you on the top side here. So remember, the ECB came out, started speaking, and we got that, you know, roll over here. Without that, the euro was threatening to make a move towards 110. And so it will be harder for the ECB to come out and talk it down next time. If the price action starts to turn up and we're testing 108 and above 108, it's going to be a little bit more serious, I believe. And we'll talk about that if that ever happens, right? In the coming weeks. No, Bank of England's not going to hike for many months. If they do, they might talk about it. There might be some dissenters, but they're not. Yeah, no. It's not really a possibility. It's just something that a couple of members may talk about. Carney's not worried, therefore we should not be pricing it in as an actual reality. If anything, they can throw cold water on the whole raising rates in Bank of England idea. All good, Tim. All good. Yeah, no, it's every central bank's being dovish. There's a fair bit of that going on at the moment. I mean, the Bank of England can afford to come across a little bit more neutral, I suppose. You know, definitely they have to acknowledge that the economy is not falling off a cliff yet, and so it could come across as pretty strong, but if their intent when they come into that meeting and the statement has the intent of trying to get the market to stop thinking about rate hike, then I think that will end up being a net dovish event for the pound itself. So tonight we do have the FOMC minutes as well. Now, do you remember this is the meeting where they raised rates but came across extremely dovish? Let's see if there's anything in the minutes that can get the market excited about potential June-July rate hike from the Fed. But we'll be looking at some of that inside the thing. In some summary reports shortly. In regards to new trade right now, I haven't got a trade on for the first time in a long time. You usually got some trades running. Very flat here. It's okay to be flat. There is a bit of peace of mind you can get from not having a trade, so you can start to try not to have a bias in your mind. I'm looking at opportunities, and perhaps we'll place a limit order. You'll notice that I had a EuroCAD order from yesterday as well, and EuroCAD, it did give us a little bit of gains, but it was under the same sort of pressure as some of these other pairs, and you don't want to be long EuroCAD when the stock market's around. So cut that if you're still in it. Well, let's have a look at a little bit of reports here. We've got some technical report here from Deutsche Bank. So the dollar yen on their little model is showing the most trendiness to the short, to the downside. Anytime you're short NFP, short dollar yen into an NFP, you're asking for trouble. Dollar yen just doesn't muck around, right? Dollar yen just doesn't sit at a level. If you're selling off and it goes to 110, tested a couple of times, you shouldn't expect it to be near 110 in a week's time. I expect it to be closer to 112. And NFP is going to provide that bounce or that lack or that break almost, right? It should be a pretty binary event how the dollar yen reacts. It shouldn't just trundle along 110. Well, it's rare that it just goes sideways, very in a tight range. The sort of range you can expect the dollar yen to go into at least 200, probably 300 pips. So that would put 110 to say 113. This is fairly technical. We won't get into this stuff. Yeah, they got their own little model here. So the company that actually releases that PMI data that we get so excited about, a company called Market. So work increases at a strong pace, but job creation slows. Price change, strongest price charged. Inflation since September 2008. So these are sub-indexes. It's holding up. It's holding up. So who's worried now? If I got stops on the short pound and 125, you know, the stops are a little bit under pressure. And if you look at, say, something like the pound yen, which is a combination of those two that are moving right here, you can see the pound yen starting to move quite sharply higher. Now there will be a lot of sellers on the rally here for both dollar yen and pound in the next 50 to 60 pips at least. I do believe Andrew was talking about selling into these rallies. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Let the market have its fun and then sell into it. I won't be looking to do that myself, but it's I understand where they're coming from technically. Yeah, and so that's a whole topic there that we can go into. You know, looking for trades in a market which is moving, I think, is very important. Not trying to extrapolate what the next move is on a chart which is not showing much action. It's much better to get into a market which has got momentum. Even right now, these are small moves. You know, this pound yen move is a small move. But if we come back and it's, you know, breaking high above 140, and you're looking to buy and you want to get in on it, it makes more sense, right? But the selling that they're talking about is that, you know, above 139 has shown a fair bit of decent resistance. Yeah, so I personally think here to here is super dangerous to be long. Now, if we get above it, we can start talking about buying pound yen. But this is where the sellers are lurking. And in the same frame of mind, dollar yen has got sellers nearly everywhere. And you can't expect the market to go berserk here in the stocks before this Chinese meeting and before NFP. So there's reasons to expect the top side here in any yen pair and the top side in the pound to sort of run out of steam with that risk building. Alright, so you know how we've been talking about the 2.3 level on the US 10-year yields? If that level breaks, we will see dollar yen probably break 110. But once again last night it has held. So that level which is trundling along has held once again. So this is, you know, helping the dollar yen react positively. A decent ADP tonight as well will let the dollar yen continue to react positively. We have highlighted several occasions the importance of resistance at 2.29, 2.3 on the yields. So what we're talking about here with bonds is the market's been selling bonds and US yields have been rising. Now, as they're buying bonds on the dovish Fed and issues about Trump, then the support at 2.3 on the yield chart, but what they're talking about here is the resistance of it. So this is for the bond market. From the perspective of the bonds, we're talking about whether we're selling or buying bonds, and if the yields break lower, bonds are going higher because of that inverse relationship. This can get confusing if you don't know that. A break below 2.3 will probably look like a top in the dollar yen and a top in US yields, and would likely be accompanied by a broader risk off phase in the markets. That's true. And could drag down the US equities, which, remember, have not had a significant correction yet. US dollars had a correction, US yields have had a correction, US stock markets have not. Keep that in the back of your mind. And in regards to the Le Pen in the French debate there, these are some of the highlights of the news stories from the Asian session. Le Pen was seen fourth in the debate overnight. Yeah, Fed's lack of resign for something from 2012 wasn't that big a deal. North Korea fired a missile and it, misfired, so it wasn't nothing really as well. So they're looking for a big pullback in the ADP. So back to 180k. Remember, there was a huge number last month. Market consensus is 184k. And the US PMI to remain strong. And also, before we get to those FOMC minutes, we do get the US crude oil inventories as well, so oil itself will be in play. But those FOMC minutes, the market's likely to focus on, why they did not adjust those dot plots. And perhaps the center there. Yeah, thanks, Slick. Potter's above you, mate. Potter's above you. So, look, I'm not going to be streaming tomorrow. I'm going to be streaming the NFP live again this week. So, we're going to take tomorrow off. If we see anything big, I'll probably be in the room though, in regards to Trump-China preparations and sort of if the market, if Trump comes out with a tweet or something which sets the agenda. He's been contained for the last 24 hours, so. But it was only a couple of days ago that he was talking about China. Alright, so this is what he wrote on the 31st. Friday last week. The meeting next week with China will be a very difficult one, in that we can no longer have massive trade deficits and job losses. American companies must be prepared to look at alternatives. Now that's... I mean, if he comes out of that meeting saying, you know, China's going to agree to let companies come back to America, you know, we're going to bring jobs back from China factories, I just don't imagine that's how it's going to go down. Alright, I just don't see him orchestrating that. Yeah. The big question will be whether Trump will shake his hand. In Chinese culture, it's really important to save face. And so they can't come across looking weak. Just for his own domestic politics back in China. Alright, let's quickly try and see sort of trade that we'll be doing today. See if we can't find something worth a little punt on. The trade I was most talking about with clients is selling the Aussie on rally. Didn't really get high enough for my risk reward. I was looking for a move towards 76. Stop around 76.30. This would be ideal if you could sell at 76, stop at 76.30, risk reward, and that's pretty good. The previous resistance at 75, support at 75.80 is held though. Now it's the resistance, so I won't be selling this low. I'd like a little bit higher. Euro pound no. I'm going to be tempted into a little bit of short gold up here. It's been a bit stubborn to respond to the US dollar here. The thing about gold is you can set your stop at those previous highs. Now it's not that gold can't go above this. We're talking about gold pulling back before the NFP. Not a huge take profit either. Just a break back below 1250. This is a pretty speculative trade though, and it's a timing trade. You want to be out in the next 24 hours. Mainly we're looking for 1250 to be tested with the stops underneath it taken, and that's really the sort of trade I'm trying to get here on this particular trade. Haha. Yeah, don't trade gold often. Don't trade gold often. Just seems to not be responding to the better sentiment. So this is quickly how you put a new trade idea, guys. If you want to post your trade ideas, you go across to $12.65, $12.45. The stop loss is much bigger than it has to be. Yeah, you have to be a little bit tactical in that trade there. Just get out if it looks like the dollar yen's rolled over, or if it looks like stock markets in the US have turned negative. You don't have to have your the stop I put there was fresh highs for the year. You don't have to have it. You don't have to take that stop. It would be harder for it to take that out before the NFP and before the Chinese meetings. But yeah, generally it's good spot on in your thoughts there. I am the Birdman. It is not good to take trades without risk reward 1-to-1, especially medium term trades. I'm just trying to do a trade a day as well. Yeah. So. And the last few haven't worked out too badly, have they? So don't judge me yet. Don't judge me yet. We'll review it next time we do the update. Pre-NFP, we'll have a quick look at gold, see how it went in the build-up. It will respond to tonight's ADP. But that's one of the trades I was looking at right now. Alright guys, if there's any questions, I'll be back half an hour before the NFP starts. So the Australian time, that's 10 PM on Friday. Send me a PM if you want me to talk to you about a particular trade. Keep an eye on the stock market and dollar yen in general at the moment. And if you're looking to sell the pound, probably just be patient here. Just be patient here. There is a little bit of life in it today. Could easily go another 50 points. You don't want to get stuck short in that particular pair.